must be 7 a.m. because the planes have started. Everywhere I go there's just noise, and I suppose that's just the city. And it never used to bother me. But, you know, this has been orchestrated as well. That's why, if you look at my past videos, if you see Bob Holman, he's as the day he arrives, the morning he arrives in Sydney, we go to Bondi. I get a cab to Bondi. And just as he's sort of circling the trash bins, he says, my stepfather was a real bastard. But he taught me one thing: learn something really well. So I learned how the inner ear works. So he's sort of warning me. He's about to really plant some serious bombs and reactivate other little letter bombs that have been planted through my ear. Reactivate them. And you know, I think I talked about in the last video about the princess and the pea. And that's what I was talking about in a way, you don't have to sort of do much to torture me. You just have to get into my head psychologically, because I will do the rest, because, you know, I think in pictures. I think in pictures naturally. I'm a creative. You know, that's the gig. Visualizing what it will look like and sound like and feel like on opening night. So of course, I'm really, 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 really fun to play with for these people. You know, I'm their unique doll. Wow! You just trigger her, traumatize her, you know, plant a couple more bombs, set the timer on them, and then walk away. She'll blow herself up. And you know, after Bob left, I nearly did. It was my father that saved me. He sent me on a 2-day silence retreat. A Catholic retreat, but there was a Sacred Heart. A Sacred Heart retreat. And they had a little grotto of Mary MacKillop, and it was real, well really it needed more love and care, but in a way it was beautiful that it was so primitive, because it showed how Mary was really out in the wilderness. And I was out in the wilderness at that time. So I put Joan Volmer Burroughs' name on a stone. I wrote her name in nail polish. And I put it near Mary, and I asked her to look after Joan. Because Joan is like she's the poster girl for lack of a better word. The poster girl for this white brotherhood, this snake brotherhood, this brotherhood of this sort of gang of men mentality, this sort of Spartan mentality that's evolved. I've watched it evolve. Where women, you know, where women are slaves and the men are their handlers and controllers. And, you know, I watched sort of where that was born. You know, it was like somewhere between Stranded and the Hellfire Club, you know. And it was all these private school boys, you know, who'd been sort of molested on some level when they were young, and then they, in their adulthood, they sort of made it fashionable. I suppose so. Everybody felt as dirty as each other. If you mainstream the trauma, then it doesn't hurt so much. I ended up in these groups, I suppose, because I was a bit of a freak. I was never quite normal enough. I had a lot of my mother's eccentricity, as in, I don't care what the neighbours think. That's what she'd say. Even though that wasn't true, she did. But on another level, she didn't either. She'd learnt to survive. Knowing what I know now, that was survival. She was very, very social as a young girl. And she was very agoraphobic. That's how I remember her when I was a child. And I couldn't work it out because I knew it wasn't my father. My father was kind and devoted to the family, and he really did his best to, I don't know, pick up any slack or, you know, I don't know, see everyone's perspective in a way. He's still like this now. And it sort of made him a martyr, in a way. But it didn't, because he endured. And sticking by my mom. And she was sometimes a difficult woman because of her trauma from her childhood. And sticking by my mum was the best gift that he could have given all of us. He's a legend. He's great. He's a trooper. He's like sitting bull, you know, Zen Jesus. He just, all this hysteria washes over him and he stays the course. And not to say he doesn't have wounds and scars and, you know, health issues that have arisen from that level of stress. He does. But, you know, he carries them with, you know, such a grace, really. Such a grace. See, I hear the front door. And I'm back again. It's just somebody leaving their front door, going to work. It's nothing. It's just the sound of a screen opening. But because I have been, I've had my door bashed in. I've had my space threatened more than once. My living space, my home space, threatened more than once. I now just wait every morning for it to happen again. Because we're talking about ritual abuse. So once that abuse has been locked into the system, and they know that it works, they'll just use it over and over again. You know, it's a ritual. I mean, my mother, I think, knows it well because she never got over what was done to her mother. So, you know, we're talking about traumas that are multi-generational and that continue until that bloodline just dies out. If it doesn't, if it's, you know, if it hasn't proved useful for the experimenters. The people who have used me for non-consensual human experimentation to see just how much trauma, humiliation, and poverty and exile I could endure before I finally gave up the ghost and knocked myself off. I'm sure there were bets on me. You know, this is why people who go through this stuff can't speak. Because it is truly unspeakable. It is truly genocide. Invisible genocide. And you may think I'm a freak, and that's true, I'm a freak. And as my handler, Rena Solomon, once told me when she was trying to convince me not to write my book, you know, nobody wants to hear your story. You know, your story is not universal. And I didn't understand that at the time. Because when did I want to say that I wanted to be universal? When did I say that I wanted to have a best-selling book? I just wanted to get my book out. I just wanted to get my story out. And of course I did see it as a movie because it reads like a movie. Because that's the way my mind works. But you know, I never thought my story was universal. And nor did I care. I was like my mother in that way. I don't care what the neighbours think. I was on some sort of quest to find out the truth. And I knew I had to examine my life to do it. And the thing about the mind control, and you know, I was under extreme handling when I came back from New York in 2006, like extreme prison environment, total ghost of the civil dead. And that's when I decided to go celibate. I just thought, I don't trust my sex. I got no judgment, you know. I knew that I could be, I knew even before knowing everything I know now, I knew that I could be triggered sexually. I knew I could be triggered, and I knew I had no judgment, and I knew I wasn't in control of my sex. That was like patently obvious. You know, I was slow on the pickup, but by the time I escaped to New York, that was, you know, as they say, even blind Freddie could see. Well, I was blind Wednesday, and yeah, I could see there was some serious issues, and I had to do some serious examination, first stop. And I had to go back. And work out where it began. And boy, oh boy, did that turn out to be a rabbit hole. But, you know, I just sort of kept a focus with 21st Century Showgirl. I just kept it, you know, really about those years before and after September 11th. You know, the shift. And the way that my relationship to those cities changed during that period of time, which was like a movie, and it was intense. And you know, my voice is almost like, or my persona is almost like cartoon character-ish to begin with. You know, it's very dull eyes. And then as the sort of Disney World set falls down and the nightmare begins, the voice becomes more gothic, and the ugly truth sort of cuts through the veil. But you know, it was basically written in stream of consciousness, and then I patched it together. And there are pieces that I wrote, like one chapter was taken from what I wrote in the aftermath of Salem with the witches, because my first stop in America was Salem, Massachusetts, and those witches did a number on me. And they burned me at the stake. They turned me into Joan of Arc. And I changed Lainey's name to Ella. So I changed the names, but I'd written that story at the time, so I just put it in as it was. And it's a creepy chapter. And I should probably read that chapter before I really start talking about lesbianism as a mind control program. Because it's a good way to begin. what would be a very long video, actually. How they plant the desires, how they warp the appetite, how they set everything up around you so it's normal. The simulacra. And you know, I knew I was in trouble, but for many years I just assumed it was my fault. And it wasn't until I'd really examined my life and really put it out there on the page and then I went celibate. Oh, it was about the same time, really. It was all the same time. But I had all these, you know, so I wasn't putting out. In fact, I made it very clear that I was single, that I was not looking for romance, that I was celibate, that I didn't do casual sex. And yet none of that was, you know, like, I made it pretty clear. Because, you know, I didn't know what was happening, but, you know, I had to set some really clear boundaries to then work out what was me and what was them. And if I hadn't have done that, I would never have finally worked out it's them. It's not me. It's them. You know, the arts, you know, is its own satanic society. It's its own, you know, little beehive. And it's run by the gays. And the gays work in with the Masons and the elites. And from what I've witnessed, you know, they've got an understanding. You know, I'm not talking about all the gays. I'm not talking about, you know, the doll actors, whatever. And you know, unless they find a victim, you know, they're just victims themselves, like me. But I'm talking about the producers and the directors, the curators, the ones with, you know, power. They know all about this, and they work in with the psychopathic heterosexuals, who basically, you know, they're not heterosexual actually, they're sort of, they're trisexuals. They'll try anything. So, you know, they're quite happy to use the gays to get their agenda moving. But then, of course, they're going to knock the gays off too, because they don't give a shit about them either. So, you know, I feel like they threw the gays at, like they just, you know, they put AIDS into that community. They injected AIDS into that community. Knocked them off. Scared the shit out of the gays that were left. And then did a deal with them. You know, gave them the medicine to keep them alive. But you better keep your mouth shut and come along with this. Now, how would you like to get married, boys?
Oh yes, I always wanted to get married. I've always been so jealous of my mother.
They're all cross-dressers. You know, even the ones who are straight. I can't tell you how many cross-dressers are in the ranks of these programmer handlers. You know, if you want to know who's in on it, follow the trail from your underwear drawer to theirs, and you'll find it. Jacob's ladder.